Welcome back to the first episode of the Marketing Measurement Matters podcast of the new year 26. Shekhar with us this time, Tim as always as well. Not as always, but most of the times.
Mostly, yeah.
Tim Wiegel's being in Thailand,
Yeah.
cuddling some cute small animals as I've seen on LinkedIn. So I think he's in his happy place. We started with a bit of delay, so sorry for that. We didn't get the camera to work, but now it works miraculously. And we want to talk about agentic AI, of course, agentic measurement, and how the work of marketing analysts will change. Maybe a disclaimer at the beginning, marketing analyst is a role or title that we don't see that often, but it's also part of the job of many performance marketers,
Exactly.
I would assume, and directors and maybe heads of performance marketing teams. So we're not saying marketing analysts, like only marketing analysts job will change, but like more or less the role of someone analyzing marketing data, I would say, right?
And I think we can actually, decrease the scope of that even a little bit. Is somebody who's trying to, or actually increase the scope, is somebody who's trying to kind of derive some recommendations for actionable recommendations from marketing data. And obviously that can be the intern in the data science department to the VP of data scientist or even the chief data scientist. Or the head of marketing, or even the CMO.
Chief Data Science Officer for you.
Oh, right. Sorry for that.
I just saw that this one light isn't on, but I'm just going to turn it on while you continue talking, if that's fine.
Yeah. So now that we kind of clarify what we mean with that, essentially everyone dealing with marketing data and trying to derive some recommendations from that, that is what we mean here in this episode, and we are going to explore today how the job of that person or how the daily work of that person or that role is going to change. Now, everyone, of course, is talking about agentic AI, and we are also talking about agentic AI when we talk about agentic measurement. And everyone thinks they have an idea what that means, but I think it would be a good idea as an introduction, so to say, for Shekhar, our resident agentic AI expert here at Funnel Measurement, to give us a quick explanation what agentic AI is and how that differs from generative AI and vanilla, so to say, LLMs.
Sure. So when we talk about AI, basically we are talking about the underlying LLM, right? The large language model that basically do the text in and text out transaction, right? So when we say simple AI, or when you go to a ChatGPT and when you write something in ChatGPT, that your query goes to LLM, and LLM responds back with an answer, right? So that's a pure vanilla LLM, okay? But if you are not satisfied with the response that's coming back with in ChatGPT, you do a further transaction of discussion. So that's kind of taking your conversation forward. So that is one element which is also an important part of agentic AI. But if you have to differentiate between a vanilla AI and agentic AI, basically we need to give a brain to your LLM, which is to your agent, which is in form of LLM. Then we have to also give the hands, which is in form of tools, or MCPs. For the
what's an MCP, Shekhar?
MCP is Model Context Protocol. So basically, a tool basically is any Python function, any API call that we can make, which we give an ability for an agent to do that API call. But now, as you know, we can have different kind of definitions of API. Different vendors can provide the APIs. So that's why a standard protocol has been created by a company called Anthropic.
Anthropic is the company that develops the Claude large language model family.
Yeah. So they have created this open source protocol, which is like kind of adopted by almost every player, AI player right now, so that it kind of standardizes how you integrate your agent with any external API. Yeah. So that's kind of a protocol. So when you give an ability for an agent to do some action, and that action can be in terms of extracting something from some database or some API, or doing an action, basically like writing to a database or calling an API, using that result and all those kind of stuff. So that ability of that extended ability of an LLM from only doing a text in, text out transaction is what makes it an agentic AI.
So essentially, to recap, for an AI, so to say, to become an agent, we need a couple of ingredients. we need the brain, which normally is one of those LLMs that most of you know. Like it can be Claude, can be GPT, the one from OpenAI, or can be DeepSeek or whatever, any of the LLMs that you could imagine. That is the brain. Then we need access to actual tools, and that can be APIs, that can be Python functions, all of that, right?
That's right.
And then what is also quite important, that's what you touched on with the MCP, is that we ideally for that to work, we need a proper context management, right? Because otherwise it doesn't know which tool to use for which task.
And that is the third ingredient that separates LLM or AI with agentic AI, which is the memory layer, right? The memory layer is also, you can see that in ChatGPT, for example, when you do a conversation in a session, it remembers what you're talking about. Now, even they have implemented inter-session use, memory layer. So that's very important thing, because even in agents, we need definitely a memory in terms of maintaining the session context, but also when you are doing a long form transaction, when your workflow go and run for 1 hour, a lot of token is generated. So we have to make sure that it doesn't overload or there is no pollution of context when we send to an LLM. So that's where context engineering plays a very important role. And that's where memory is much more important in agentic AI.
And that's something that I just heard about. I think you kind of brought that up. I was working on a slide, and I was putting in there that the system is going to be informed by RAG or some other smart system. And then Tim said, well, let's call it context engineering. We don't want to be focused on RAG itself. So that's also, I mean, we're talking about terms here that are rather new. MCP also just was launched last year, right?
Last year.
It's not
End of
something well
24,
established.
I think,
So that's what we have to always keep in mind when we're talking about these concepts.
Yeah.
And context engineering is also not that established.
Yes,
seems
that's
like
also a very new concept, and
Yeah.
lot of things going around with context engineering as well.
So now that we're talking about agents, before we talk about marketing analytics or marketing science specifically, I wanted to touch briefly up on a very, very famous now form of agents, which is coding agents. So most, I guess quite some people in the audience have heard of Lovable, have heard of Cursor.
And by the way, if you have anything to show, just forward it to me and then I can...
We get to that later. But so have used Lovable, have used Cursor, probably built some apps for yourself, and felt like a developer, or maybe you are a developer and really accelerated your workflow. And we actually see a tremendous adoption of these tools, which I think is evident by their I think very rapid acceleration in ARR. So I think both Cursor and Lovable just used less than a year to get to $100 million in ARR, which is extremely impressive, and just speaks to the popularity of these frameworks and their transformative power. Now, János, you have been actually managing technical teams for how long now? 20 years, maybe 15, something like that. Or definitely more than 10.
Yeah, definitely more than 10.
Definitely more than 10, because Attriba was founded around 10 years ago, so definitely more than 10. And I know for a fact that you also played around with these popular vibe coding or tools or coding agents a little bit.
More or less only anti-gravity and a bit of Lovable.
Yeah. So from your perspective, how much of a game changer is that actually?
Oh, like it's a 180-degree game changer. Because like before, I mean, I used to code way back, and after, of course, also in studies and stuff. But before, it was my nightmare to set up my coding environment, and so that I could even, pull up an iPad notebook and start hacking away. Before that even worked, it took me probably 1.5 days to get all the dependencies right, and load all the packages, and then install Brew and whatever is necessary. And now with anti-gravity, it just seemed like so much easier to get that done, and then also to just tell it, okay, and now deploy it on Google Cloud or whatever. And so I think that's you're so much smarter from sort of idea to actually implementation, and so much quicker. I mean, if you're an engineer like you guys and you got your whole system set up and anyways, then that's cool. But as a more like manager position, or manager who doesn't code that regularly, or where it has been like quite a while ago, then that's such a definite game changer.
Bonus question: do you think managers should start coding again now that they were vibe coding? Now that they have the
I don't know. I was thinking about this before, because you mentioned that, I think yesterday or the day before, that could be discussed here. Well, I mean, managers also have a specific job to fulfill, and that is making their teams work. I don't know how much coding necessarily helps them to make their team most efficient, and sometimes they just have to do. Manager always sounds that interesting, but most of the times it's just unblocking team members and getting teams to work together, and it's not necessarily,
Yeah.
But it's good to prototype new ideas and to figure stuff out fairly quickly. So
Yeah,
there's
sometimes
a
it's
specific task to fulfill by manager. You don't want all managers suddenly to start coding and not caring about enabling
tools
their
like
teams.
anti-gravity or cursor may be beneficial for managers or someone who leads a team or leads a product development in order
Yeah.
to demonstrate what exactly feature they are looking forward for from their team, right?
Yeah.
So prototyping has become too easier and too faster
Yes.
with these kind of
Yeah,
tools.
or formulating an idea, landing page or whatever with Lovable.
Yeah.
That's something like before you even discuss how it should look like, you just do it. And
I love that. That's my favorite form of ideation. Just go
Yes.
on Lovable. 2-3 prompts is much better than try to draw something on a whiteboard or write like a 10-page spec document. I love that.
And this is that's why they are saying that like the future is here, but it's like unevenly distributed. And what it means
Very
is and what it
very
means is
skewed, yes.
what it means is, for example, if we divide the categories of AI users in 3 different categories. One, regular user who are going to AI through ChatGPT, right? So they go to AI, go to ChatGPT, and they do the stuff. And then there is another category of people, for example, within knowledge workers, but specifically developers. So they are seeing the real magic because the applications that they are interacting with AI are much more and they are progressing much faster. So the magic that they are observing may be the third category of people who are oscillating between the regular user and developer, which is like any knowledge worker.
And that's such a key difference, and that's where it also really, where I was having my aha moment, where I was like, yeah, of course, it's just freaking autocomplete, and we don't need to talk about that it's not AGI yet.
And that's why that aha moment is very different for different kind of people, right?
Yeah, because like literally, I was always having this idea, and I talked about this on LinkedIn, this LLM council. And I thought, like, how long will it take me to implement that? It's just this Carpathy repo that, and having to replicate it. And I just basically, and what I did also, the anti-gravity prompt, I had it generated by Gemini, which was much more precise than what I would have put in anti-gravity, and was so precise, and it said even like, use these LLMs, use OpenRouter, blah, use this GitHub repo and replicate it or pull it, and then doom, it was just there. Like it was, and that was pretty freaking.
There is a term for that as well. It's called meta prompting. So basically, you prompt an LLM to get a better prompt to use it.
Yeah, and that, like, I mean, and that's I think the whole thing. I mean, we kind of haven't talked about the change of marketing analytics role yet, but we're getting there. It's a long way to explain.
It's a bit of a detour, yeah.
It's a bit of a detour.
Left, yeah.
We have some time left. So just, and I think you only really get the potential and you really understand it if you actually work with these tools on a regular level, and also not on this superficial level in terms of what I asked my LLM this morning, or ChatGPT and Gemini, like, can I do a plank if I have some ACI shoulder issues or not? But really dive into it and see the full blown potential. And I think that's where engineers and coders like you guys have a bleeding edge, because you work with this on a much more, how should I put it? It changes your productivity in a much deeper level than ordinary knowledge workers.
Yeah, and I think you can only really leverage the productivity gains, at least for coding agents, if you can actually code. First, it can transform you from somebody who can't code at all to someone who can code a little bit. Okay, fine, that's a 0-1 change. I'm not going to argue with that. But as a real developer, if you're actually able to figure out the limitations, get past them, prompt it in the proper way, that's the real game changer there. And that's where I think we will actually see quite some dramatic productivity gains also in the financial markets in the years to come. Now that we have all these tools, it's something that we talked about a little bit. What does it now mean? Does it mean the marketing scientist will go away because everyone will just talk to an agent? Does it mean that we will not have SaaS companies anymore because now everyone can code with anti-gravity, build their own SaaS? Where do you think this is going?
Again, I mean, if you look at it, even the work that we have done within Funnel so far with building applications, you see that there are 2 different kind of workflows if you talk about it. One is, let's say, a more rigorous workflow where we need intelligence layer, but it's more of a rigorous thing, right? We kind of do a redundant job. Automating that using one LLM as a centerpiece is solving a lot of problems. Like it is making things much faster. But then there is another layer of intelligence required, especially in marketing analytics. Marketing analysis is the core model, right? The model within the model. For example, in our workflow, we have these models, which is automating this entire workflow. But one of the piece of it is to basically trigger the, let's say, MMM model. So the building that MMM model is something which can be augmented with AI, but that would need a lot of domain expertise, a lot of infusion of domain expertise into these systems. So it's a multi-layer automation process, I would say. It will improve the life of marketing analytics engineers, consultants, and developers and scientists in a way that you will have kind of a peer programmer or a mentor or a researcher that you can use in order to build better MMM models or incremental reality testing models and stuff like that. So I would say that it's in a short term, I feel it's an augmenter
Yeah.
for these kind of processes.
One thing that I wanted to add is that we have a couple of different trends in the industry that all lead to a bit of a changing role of our dear marketing analyst, whatever that means. We have GenAI, we have coding agents on the one hand, and we have, on the other hand, we have these open source packages that started to come out, let's say in 2022, end of 2021, something like that, right?
You mean Robin Meridian and stuff?
Robin Meridian, GeoLift, I think there's another one for incrementality testing, PyMC marketing, of course, all of these. So when I started with marketing mix modeling, what you needed to do, at least as a marketing data scientist, you needed to be able to build a marketing mix model, account for saturation, account for sign constraints, account for ad stock lags, and all that stuff. 2019 was actually quite difficult because none of that stuff really existed in a ready-made form. Now we have all of it. And what we don't have, we can probably ask either Cursor or even just ChatGPT to code it up. And if we don't understand something, we can paste the documentation into our favorite LLM and that will also be fine. So there's a bit of a commoditization of the modeling layer itself. And by modeling, I don't mean to understand what you model, like which variables you model in relationship to each other, but the model execution layer. Yeah. I think it's a similar moment that we had with scikit-learn in, I think, 2012, 2013, something like that, that suddenly you had logistic regression, random forest, gradient boosting, everything in one package with one unified API. We're not there yet with marketing analytics. We don't have the scikit-learn for MMM yet, but it's getting there. We can probably agree that's
I think the colleagues from PyMC would disagree and say that it's already there. But
it just has one model. Sorry, guys, but it's not that you have 35,000 different models implemented. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. So basically, the heavy lifting mathematics part is abstracted to certain layers. Like for scikit has abstracted that heavy lifting mathematics part, and then maybe GenAI is helping us to use the syntactical knowledge of packages like scikit-learn or PyMC or Meridian in order to come up with the code that is required in order to execute that particular or build that particular model. But that's the heavy lifting maths being done by these packages. But the domain infusion and how to use the how to formulate the hyperparameters and all these kind of stuff is gonna come by domain experts. And that's where I would also like to say that it's an application gap, not a technology gap. What I mean by that is, as I told, for people like general users, ChatGPT is there and application is there. For people like us, or we have tools like Cursor or Anti-Gravity and all those kind of stuff. But the people, other knowledge workers do not have an application that they can, and that's what the kind of applications we are building are those applications that they can get exposed to. Otherwise, they keep oscillating between general purpose tools like ChatGPT or very specific tools like Cursor. So the application we are building will infuse those kind of domain expertise. So yeah.
Janusz, so what do you think? You've been in the marketing measurement space for more than 10 years now. So you observed that. I think you built an MTA algorithm from scratch in R. that must have been
No, that's a lot.
a horrific experience.
Yeah, beautiful.
Just from today's vantage point, maybe also quite rewarding actually. But and now we're here. So I think we can all agree that tomorrow's marketing scientist will not care so much about hand coding, MMMs, ad stock functions, or MTA.
And hopefully not
anymore.
data-driven MTA algorithms.
Yeah,
and
but
decide whether it's going to be based on Shapely or logistic regression or whatever. Yeah.
So what will they do instead? Where do you see this going?
Yeah, I think they need to know about the limitations of algorithms and basic like understanding of the difference whether Robin is frequentist and PyMC and Meridian Bayesian approach and what the benefits are, and also running this in production, etc. But I think they need to match that with the domain knowledge. So when you talk about there's not a technology gap but an application gap, I was just thinking, okay, when we don't have this domain knowledge yet sort of codified or standardized, that is the application that's missing there.
Yes.
Because the technology for that is of course there. So you could think of different domain related agents or probably agents the right term there, something like that. And then, but you still need someone to orchestrate that and understand also. And with technology, it's always, in my experience, it's always about understanding the limitations. And when it like doesn't make sense at all to use a specific type technology.
Yeah.
For example, not to use LLMs to count the R's in Strawberry or whatever. I mean, that's probably a software.
Not vanilla LLMs, but once you give it a Python tool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, like
that's when you need a tool.
Yeah.
It's easy as that.
Yeah.
I remember in the first version of our Insights agent, we had the LLM calculate the fractions, and that was like 70% of the time it worked.
Yeah.
And the 30% of the time it didn't work, it was pretty fucking embarrassing. And then we gave it a calculator tool, and
there's
that
the
was
F word again. we tried it.
we need to stay true to ourselves.
5 years in the
I need to stay true to myself.
Yeah.
But
no, it's good. Yeah.
So we gave it a calculator tool, pretty basic tool, and those problems were solved.
Yeah.
No, but I think exactly that is important, and then also understand which parts of the domain knowledge can be sort of understood by an agent and tool. And I think, of course, like it would be ignorant to say, or arrogant almost to say that agents cannot fulfill all of these jobs, or and will not ever have all the context in play. I think
one thing that we haven't talked about, but what we really need to note also is that LLMs itself, the brain of the tools that they're probably gonna stay the same, right? The Python function is not gonna change so much, but the brain, the LLM itself, that is it's at the worst state it's ever gonna be, right? Yeah. So from here, it's only gonna get better, and to be honest, it's already quite impressive.
It is. Yeah.
And so think about where this can potentially go.
Yeah.
I mean, with that particular thing, like the recent release of Claude model, Opus 4.5, that has kind of created a stir. Again, this magic is only observed by this category of people who are using that for coding purposes.
Yes.
So, and that's one thing which has been released like 45 days back, but it's quite significant.
I saw you posting about it on LinkedIn, but I haven't yet managed to ask you, what was the magic about it? What was kind of...
Okay. With an anecdote, I'll try to explain this. Yeah. So if a competitor applauds your product, that's a big thing. So for example, Gemini senior engineer, she has posted online that they in Google have been trying to implement a feature from 1 year, from 1 year, and they tried Opus 4.5, which implemented that in a pretty good shape.
Orchestration feature which they wanted. Saw
in
this.
1 hour. And this is coming from Gemini, which is like cutthroat competitor of Claude. So that's one.
But it also shows you how self-confident Google is to be able to talk about it like that. They just like, okay, challenge accepted. Let's get there.
Because LLM capabilities are like 100-meter race. Like every 100 meter, all competitors will be ahead of each other. Like 45 days, Opus 4.5 is in there. But again, Gemini 3.5 will come up with a better model. So that will keep going on.
Now that we actually don't have so many more minutes left, so I'm the timekeeper today, as you may have noticed. We also wanted to talk a little bit about what we're actually doing in funnel measurement. We're going to save the full-fledged demo for some later time when we don't have so many technical issues. But just on a broader level, maybe Janos, you can start. why are we actually even implementing agentic AI in the product? What's the rationale?
Yeah, so cool. I mean, we of course also, like every engineering minded team, we thought, okay, now we have these amazing new tools, and we somehow need to make use of them. And that's
I
probably
wish you
not
wouldn't
the
have said that.
that's
not
probably
how
the
we did
worst
it.
approach that you can have, from a business perspective at least. But then we also had a very specific problem to solve, and that is that we see that onboarding new clients on measurement requires a lot of customized work and a lot of hand-holding anyhow, but also it's not that much, like it's very difficult to standardize it. And then there's a lot of sort of non-codified knowledge within the teams that onboard these clients, and different people might have different niches, so to say, or T-shaped knowledge. So that some might know better about a specific industry and how to adapt the model to that, and some know better about the modeling itself. And that is just, that seemed like such a beautiful use case to use agentic AI and then, apply it to this use case of agentic measurement, which basically helps us to codify a lot of the knowledge and really run through the whole modeling process. Not to build another Robin or Meridian or PyMC, but to use these algorithms that are there and then apply it and match it to the specific clients and customers' use case. And at first, and yeah, I mean, very honestly speaking, we didn't know if it's going to work out. Like, it's a lot of, it was an R&D project, and happily we managed to hire you with your experience, and still very grateful for having you in place. And it worked out very, very nicely. It was such a good fit. I mean, personally, of course, but also then from the technology to that business problem, which is not always given, right? We need to be honest here. Like a lot of the AI projects that are, GenAI projects, we should probably say, that are currently being launched are just going nowhere. They are pilots. They're not being put in production.
Or before, when people said, like, we have neural networks and we have MMM, now we want to do neural networks for MMM. Yeah, might make sense, but also most of the times probably didn't. Well, two things I wanted to add here and why we're doing it. First of all, in addition to what Janos said, is that users learned over 2 to 3 years now to interact with anything in a chat or in a cursor-like experience. So they're going to demand that for our products sooner or later as well. That's the one thing. The other thing is discoverability of insights. So to those of you out there who have actually used our triangulation dashboard, it has like 20 or so different KPIs for sometimes 20 channels. So that's 400 cells, so to say, that you need to look at. And that's fine. That's why we built it on purpose that way, because triangulation means you look at a few more different KPIs. But of course, we acknowledge that it's easy to overlook a specific nugget. You have 400 possibilities to overlook one specific nugget.
Yeah, and then just also accounting for all the potential interactions.
Interdependencies. Yeah, exactly.
So you want to try to understand why last click CPA is higher than the MMM, whatever. And
exactly. So that's why we built it. Now, before we close this out, Shekhar, you can give us a little taste of what it is that we're building or we have built and how we're building it.
Okay, sure. So as we have discussed this before, that this entire MMM workflow comprises of multiple stages, right? So and we have discussed this before, that it starts with EDA, then we go to the exploratory data analysis stage. Then we go to the modeling stage, then we go to the result analysis stage, then the dashboarding stage, and stuff like that. Like, so multiple stages. So what we are doing internally is automating these specific stages, and through a chat interface and also through other agentic applications, end-to-end automation of all these stages. Yeah. So for example, EDA stage. So basically we have a workflow where we have curated, and when we say creating an infusing domain expertise into applications, that's not all. Basically infusing domain expertise into an agentic application, because that agentic application has capability to extract data and write data and stuff like that, a lot of things. The most important tool that we are using is the Python tool, because in runtime, looking at the raw data, it's able to create Python functions on the go, execute it, and use that result in order to do more detailed EDAs, generate graphs on the go and stuff like that. So we are automating these individual stages, where we are automating the EDA, graph generation, then triggering the model, and then looking at the result of all the models that we have generated, and then finding the best model out of it, best trial out of it, and then also kind of doing the deployment and stuff like that. So individual stages plus a workflow that can automate everything end to end with a chat interface, which is basically we have on the our triangulation UI, which enables user to individually do everything from the chat interface as well. Yeah.
And I think with that, actually, we can close this amazing episode out and actually leave a more full-fledged demo for one of the next episodes, where
Definitely.
we're actually going to dive into the architecture and show inside our tool what it actually is that we're doing.
Yes. Cool.
Absolutely.
Thanks again for being here, Shekhar.
Thank you.
Again, always great to have you. And then thanks to the audience for listening in. And also thanks for you to participate. And next time, we won't have Tim Wiegels back. I was just thinking next time we'll have the doctor back. But we managed without him. And hope to see you all next time. Tune in to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts we are also currently on.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Don't forget to subscribe and leave some comments. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.